This recording is to try to help you out with a sample for Chapter 6, Code Completion Exercise number 1. Maybe this will get you started so you can continue on with your lab assignment. I have started by opening my flash drive and pulling up my Zamplite HTDocs WebTech Coursework Chapter 6 folder. This is where the files are located that are required for the code completion exercises on page 193. I have copied 3 of the files: Paint Report HTML, Paint Report PHP, and Paint Contracts.txt, and added the name Grotberg to each of those so that I can leave my original files intact in case I make mistakes and have to come back and start over. You might want to do the same. The code completion exercise says that these 3 files, the Paint Report HTML, does not need to be changed. It's just a form with a submit button to run paintreport.php. So let's look at this Paint Report HTML. I'm going to double click on it, and it pulls up my monthly report, and then I'm going to right click and view the source so that I can see the source code that created this HTML form. All I've done here is add my name and my date, and I changed the name of the file to Grotberg and added the word key at the end of the exercise. This is the file it has added, and I had to change the name in my title to Paint Report Grotberg and my action to Paint Report Grotberg so that it will find the correct file when it goes to post. The purpose of this file is simply to display the report. It doesn't do anything else, so there's nothing you have to do here except change the names if you created files using your name. The next file that it mentions is paintreport.php. This is the file that's going to run the program and do the processing. And then there's a Paint Contracts.txt file. So we're going to look at the Paint Contracts text file first, and then we'll come back to the other. If you open it up in Notepad, this is what it's going to look like. It's just a bunch of numbers separated by periods. If you open it and edit it with Notepad++, it's going to look like this. You have 6 separate lines. Each line has a number on it: 680, 536, 284, 148, and 340. And then there's a blank line at the end. And that's what's in our .text file. I recommend that anytime you're working with a database or a text file that you look at the file and see what's in it before you start to write your code. So that will help you to see if what you're creating is working correctly. So all that's left now is the paintreport.php file that we're going to make our changes to. So we have the 5 numbers that represent the income from this month's paint contracts, and your job is to develop the code in the PHP in order to open the paint contracts file, read the 5 lines from the file, close the file, and calculate the total income. All of that information comes from page 193. And then the print statement to display the 5 payments and the total has already been provided, so you don't have to change that. So I'm going to come to paintreport.php and right click, edit it with Notepad so I can make my changes. The first thing you want to do every time is, of course, put your name in it and put the date. And I'm going to change the name of this program and change this to Grotberg. Peggy Grotberg, March 6, 2012, Paint Report Grotberg.php. Now I've added my name to all of these files just so I can keep the originals intact and not make changes to them. This is what was provided for you. The Paint Report title, and they've referenced it back to the style sheet for colors and font, etc. It's called monthly report. And you know that what you're creating is PHP code, so everything you add has to be between these PHP tags. And here are the print statements that they have already added for you. Now, part of the reason why they added the print statements for you is so that you would know what the variable names are, like payment 1, payment 2, payment 3, payment 4, payment 5, and then total. So these are the variable names that they used in the program, and yours need to match whatever they came up with. So we're going to start here, right underneath the PHP, and I'm going to tab over so I can indent into my PHP. And the first thing it tells me is that it needs to open the file and then read the lines and then close the file and then calculate. So our first step is going to be to open the file. And I'm going to start my variable name with a $, as always. And I'm going to use the function open. The function open requires parentheses, and in double quotes is where you would put the name of the file that you're going to open. And I've added the word Grotberg to the end of mine, again, so that I don't mess up the original file. So I'd have to add that here. You wouldn't have to do that unless you had changed the name of your file. And then you have to tell the file what you're opening it for. In this case, I'm opening it to read it, because I'm not making changes to it. And as always, you have to end your PHP statement with a semicolon. And then, after I open the file, the next thing it says is to read the 5 lines from the file. So I'm going to have to read each line independently, because when you get something out of a file, it only gets one thing at a time, one line at a time. So my first one's called payment 1. The function I need to use is called fgets. So I'm going to go into the file and get something out of it. The file I'm going to get it from is now called paint file. And I have to end with a semicolon. Now, I know it's called paint file right here because I just gave it that variable name up here. The file I opened was paintcontractsgrotberg.txt. I opened it so that I could read it. That's what the R means. And I renamed it paint file with a $sign in front, because that's a variable name that's acceptable to PHP. Now I have to use that variable name anytime I reference that file. So I'm going to get the first line from paint file, and I'm going to put that in a space in memory, which is called payment 1. So whatever name happens to be on the first line of my paint file, or whatever number that's on the first line of my paint file, is going to go into payment 1. And now all I have to do is, what I'm going to do is copy, Control C to copy. I'm going to come right below here and tab over, and I'm going to Control V to paste. And it tells me I need to do that 5 times. I need to read 5 lines, so that's 2, and then come right down here. That's 3, that's 4, and 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I need to change my numbers. So I'm going to open the file that's called paintcontractsgrotberg.txt. I'm opening it so I can read it. I'm renaming it paint file. This is my new variable name. Now every time I use that file, I have to refer to that variable name. So I'm going to get out of paint file the first line, and I'm going to call it payment 1. And then I'm going to get out of paint file whatever's on the second line, and I'm going to call that payment 2. And I'm going to get from this file what's on the third line and call it payment 3. and then I'm going to get what's on the fourth line and call that payment 4, and then I'm going to get what's on the fifth line and call that payment 5. So I have now gotten my 5 lines as my instructions told me to do. And after I've read the 5 lines, it says to close the file. So that's my next step, is to close the file. When you close a file, it's just the function close, and I have to tell it what to close, and right now the name of it is $paint file. So that's what I want to close, and I have to use my semicolon at the end because it is a PHP statement. I'm just going to clean this up a little so it's easier to read. So I have opened my file. After I opened my file, I then came in here and got 5 lines from the file and named them payment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I closed my file. So that's what I've done. I'm just trying to make it look a little easier to read so you will understand it. Opened it, got 5 lines out of it, closed it as per the instructions. The next thing the instructions tell me to do is to calculate the total income. So the way I'm going to calculate my total income, because each one of these lines had an income line on it, so the next thing I need to do is calculate my total income, which is going to be called $total equals, and each one of these payments that I used. So $payment 1 plus $payment 2 plus $payment 3. And if you think you're going to make typos here, it might be best to cut and paste and just change the numbers. $payment 4 plus, and we have $payment 5. And we have to end it with a semicolon. So here in this line, I've told it to take payment 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, add them all together, and that will give us our total, $total. And now they have told us what to do with that. Once we've got the information, they already gave us the print information. So we're going to print to a file. It's going to be called Income from Paint Contracts. It's going to be formatted as a number out 2 spaces, payment 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then at the end in bold there's going to be a total number formatted out 2 spaces, and that will be our total from the contracts. And that's all you have to provide. Now let's see if it works. I'm going to save it and close it.